In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. These first words of the Bible establish God as the eternal creator of all things, including heaven and earth. And from that beginning, right through to the book of Revelation, there are many references to heaven. Deuteronomy tells us heaven, even the highest heaven, belongs to God. And it was from heaven that God's voice was heard at the baptism of Jesus. Elijah went up in a whirlwind to heaven. And Isaiah implores us, lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Paul tells us he was caught up to heaven. And the book of Revelation promises there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and the dwelling of God will be with men. These and dozens of other scriptural references give us assurances that heaven is a real place.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 8 and 9 teach that heaven is more real than earth itself. And it is important that we understand the realness of heaven and set our eyes on a real place where we are really going to spend eternity.
Heaven is a spiritual realm, and its existence requires faith. We're told in the Bible that without faith we cannot please God, because we must come to Him by faith. Could it be that finally, after 6,000 years, evidence is emerging that could prove that heaven exists? Mighty cathedrals with lofty spires and humble village chapels have all been built with the hope of heaven as part of the architect's plan. But from the most humble bricklayer to the most powerful king, this magnificent outpouring has its foundation in faith. Could it be that we're at the very beginning of a whole new era of knowledge and understanding? Is evidence now emerging compelling enough to convince the skeptics, even scientists? With recent advances in medical technique, more and more people are coming back from the edge of death. These medical miracles have given rise to a new phenomenon known as the near-death experience. People who apparently slip from the doctor's grasp but come back to life, so to speak, and bring with them remarkably vivid and unexplainable visions. Visions that appear to be associated with all of the beliefs we normally associate with heaven. Dr. Kenneth Ring, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at the University of Connecticut, has worked with a number of these people.
In many near-death experiences, people talk about a feeling of tremendous peace and well-being. They often say that they find themselves out of their physical body and are able to see it as though a spectator to it from an elevated position. Many people describe traveling through a dark space, sometimes talked about like a tunnel, and then they find themselves in the presence of a beautiful radiating light of astonishing beauty, and where a feeling of love and great tenderness comes in. Some of these people also talk about having a life review in which they see virtually everything that's happened in their life. And then they may make a decision to go back to their body, or they may be told that they have to go back, that their work here isn't finished. Those are some of the typical features of a near-death experience.
But there are other aspects of the near-death experience that appear to go beyond the memory of the event and actually center on the immediate things going on around them. In many of these instances, the evidence is very compelling. Let's begin with a recent event that took place at the Hartford Hospital.
What do you got?
Cardiac arrest.
Epidemiology?
Unknown.
And perfect. Epinephrine. All right, let's go. Come on. Okay. Pulse. Flat. Breath up, please. Start CPR. Ready for birth. Clear. Flat. Resume CPR.
In spite of heroic efforts, eventually even the best physicians are forced to just give up. But in this particular instance, the patient apparently didn't. According to all medical and physical science, what happened in this particular emergency room was, well, impossible.
What?
I saw the most amazing thing. I left my body.
The woman told the doctor she had left her body entirely while those in the room had been working to revive her. She felt herself being pulled up through several floors of the hospital until she found herself on the roof. She was enjoying the view of the skyline when she noticed something red out of the corner of her eye. It was, she said, a shoe. Obviously, everyone was extremely skeptical. After all, hadn't she been completely comatose? But when Dr. Raymond Moody, author of Life After Life, heard about it, he was more inclined to accept the woman's story. Dr. Moody has researched hundreds of these kinds of events.
The near-death experience is a powerful statement of the reality of the afterlife. As resuscitation techniques improve, more and more people are having profoundly meaningful experiences when they return from the verge of death. They tell us that they find themselves out of their bodies and yet still functioning and alive. As a medical doctor, I began my clinical investigations of these experiences somewhat dubious, and then quickly realized that we can only ignore the evidence for so long.
Inevitably, one of those present insisted on proving the woman's story. It seemed simple enough, just have someone go to the roof and check.
Eventually, the reality of what's happening begins to set in, and you become aware that the only way of accounting for the decisive commonalities in these experiences is to assume their validity.
That's the shoe. That's the red shoe.
Under any circumstance, it seems highly unlikely that a woman brought in on the ground floor in a coma could have had any knowledge of a red shoe on a roof. But it takes more than anecdotal evidence, even this convincing, to achieve scientific credibility. What was needed was some scientific way to demonstrate that the body and the spirit can exist separately. That discovery would provide strong evidence for life after death. But how could that be done? Some surprising answers when we come back.